it. It's a lot shorter. Andrews. It's been, to say the least, an eventful free practice and qualifying set of sessions yesterday, and even almost an old school warm-up this morning as our FP3 for 20 minutes was out on the track so that everybody could just check the machinery. The issues have been at turn one, just exiting the pits. Uniquely, the pits split into two here, and rather like Mid-Ohio, our start line and finish line is in two different places. We'll start about a third of the way down West Jefferson Avenue, the long run from turn 2 to 3, where the top speeds are somewhere in the region of 170 miles an hour. But our restart and finish line is on Franklin Street, just as you come out of turn 9, the final right-handed corner, so off St Antoine Street onto Franklin, about halfway up where the pit lane is in the car park to driver's right. In the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre, I'm John Hindhaugh with a surprise special guest. The voice of IMSA's pre and post has hustled in to the Global Broadcast Centre. Thank you very much, and delighted to say Chris Wilner is with us and as excited as he could be. Now, normally your job is about finished by now because you've done all the introductions. We're going to make you work a little bit harder today, Chris.
That's okay, John. I'm certainly excited to be here, and as the cars get ready to get fired up, I am fired up because this is one of my favorite races of the year. Just how technical, how aggressive this racetrack is, and obviously with 22 of the best sports car racers out there on this circuit, it's going to be fun to watch. So glad I've got a bird's eye view to check the race out and get to call it with you, and it should be a fantastic 100 minutes here on the streets of Detroit.
It is a different mindset, to be honest, isn't it, Chris? Because track position's king. That's why qualifying was so important, and Acura have locked out the front row from BMW on row 2 and Porsche taking up row 3. Nick Yellerly and Tom Blomqvist doing a cracking job. They'll be able to control the first part of the race in theory, if nothing else changes. And as Paul Truswell, our statistician at Le Mans, always says, if nothing else changes, which is highly unusual in sports car racing. And it is a long run down from the green flag to the first major braking area, which is effectively at turn 3.
It really is, and it kind of throws at least a lot of us off for a loop sometimes because it's such a unique start to this race, but it also opens up a massive opportunity if you're back in row 2 or row 3 to maybe make some much needed positions up in that first corner, because after that, we've seen this race, it is so hard to pass. It's technical. You mentioned that being a huge braking zone. Of course, traditionally turn 1 here, right down Franklin is probably your most other opportune passing point here on this racetrack. So it's technical, it's fast, the concrete walls on either side of you, but you're right, the start of this race is going to be key here for several drivers looking to gain some positions.
So Acura, BMW, Porsche, the first 6 cars in a Noah's Ark 2x2 situation. Best of the Cadillacs on home turf, of course, right in the shadow, literally, of the Renaissance Centre, the Rensen, their global headquarters for General Motors, and that's the Jack Aitken Whelan Cadillac from the 2 Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillacs, back on home turf and with their home brand for WTR. They're in 8th and 9th. JDC Miller's Porsche in 10th. Roman De Angelis in 11th. I'll give you the GTD Pro rundown in a moment, but given that this is a street circuit, then getting accelerated is one thing, but getting it stopped is very, very important. So let's have a look at our Brembo brake facts for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Chevrolet Detroit Sports Car Classic. The Brembo technicians grade each of our circuits from 1 to 5, 1 being the easiest on the brakes and 5 being the most harsh. Guess what this one is? It's a 5. Now, they don't just stick their hands in the air and make this decision. They are looking at the data, and this is at a 5. The toughest braking point, 4 out of 5. Toughest braking point, no doubt, is down at turn 3, and that you are dragging yourself back down from 170 plus miles an hour down to first gear. 9 braking zones per lap, 9 corners per lap. What does that tell you? 2.6 Gs going into the (1,472 Fahrenheit as peak brake temperature. I promised you, thank you to Brembo for those brake facts. GTD Pro, Ford Multimatic have locked out the front row with Seb Prio. Hello to Seb's mum and dad, who I know are watching and listening in Guernsey. Chris Meese, his teammate, alongside, so they should be able to control things a little bit as well. Then it's the 2 BMW of Paul Miller Racing having a much better time of things this weekend. The qualifying in GTD Pro was curtailed slightly because the dragon speed of Rasmussen, the Ferrari, went into the wall. Don't get 10 minutes of green flag in those qualifying sessions, then we have to find another way to set the grid, normally done on championship positions, and that I think would have been a little harsh on Seb Prio for that, but he has now got an earned pole for Ford. The 2 Paul Miller BMs, as I said, and then it's Corvette with Tommy Milner in 5th, 6th for Andrea Caldarelli, and the Pfaff Motorsports Lamborghini. Tony just telling all of the teams, Tony is our starter for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Always a smile on her face, and she's telling everybody there's one more formation lap. After Pfaff, on the inside of row 4, it's Klaus Bachler for AO Racing. The Porsche not going so well here. It's Roxy coming off a victory at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Now, Roxy's brother, Rexy, gets a gold tooth on every victory. Roxy, being a little more refined, has gone for gold nail varnish. Keep an eye on that on the side of the bright pink number 77. Antonio Garcia in 8th position. Frankie Montecalvo for Vassar Sullivan. 2 Lexus RCF GTs here. Acuras have lined up rather splendidly. This is all looking good. Green flags in the air. The 100 minutes starts right now, and we are racing. Taylor racing the blue number 10 of Philippe Albuquerque's had a cracking start. Flashing of the headlights from Nick Tandy, that adds 20 horsepower. said to some drivers the other week when I was talking to them, do you ever get put off by flashing headlights behind you? And to a driver, they said, no, John, not at all. Do you ever flash when there's somebody in the way? Yes, John, all the time. Seb Brio led them to the line for Ford Multimatic Racing and has held first with his teammate in second and the two BMWs of Paul Miller Racing in third. Louis Delatraz has dropped at the back of the field in GTP as the two Paul Miller cars get a little friendly. Oh, there's a touch there and a sideways moment for the 48 of Dan Harper from his teammate. Internecine rivalry there, but we're off and running. We've completed the first lap, and Chris, we can breathe just a little bit easier now.
I don't know about that, because he's for Philippe Albuquerque, the defending winner. Remember, they were with Acura last year and broke a long win list.
Just a local yellow at the moment as Nick Yellowly completes another lap. That is very impressive by our AMR safety crew. It looked like it was a dark red colour. And the Corvette number 4 is damaged at the back for Tommy Milner. So there's been some contact there. Was that with the Porsche? It was pink, not dark red. And a little brush past there. Was that from Roxy then? As both of the Corvettes 4 and 3 did get through, and we have gone to a full course yellow. This is a short yellow. The pits will not open. We actually probably won't even need the safety car to slow them down. So let's see what happened at the front of the field. As we were on the first lap, that was completing the first racing lap. Bit of hip and shoulder from Philippe Albuquerque down at turn 1 at the end of Franklin, turning into Rivard Street. And somehow 3 wide at turn 3 was what caused that little bit of damage. But the real talking point, and I think this might be, I'm going to be diplomatic and say this might be an interesting conversation at the end of the race between the two Paul Miller BMWs running in the works colours, as they came together. And remember, they started in 3rd and 4th position. So the pits have not opened, which is why nobody's dived in. The red cross flashing partway down at Water Street, and again at the entrance to this unusual pit lane, in that we have pit stalls on the left-hand side where you service from the left-hand side, and pit stalls on the right-hand side where you service from the right-hand side. So depending on where you pitted is depending where your fuel filler goes in and which side your guys come out of the wall, come off the wall. Safety car lights are out, Chris, and we'll come back to a restart on the short chute that is Franklin Street between turn 9 and turn 1. Nick Yellowly, pressure on him now.
Absolutely, and it's all going to be how he times this restart, because you know Tom Blomqvist, Sheldon van der Linde will be right there as well. And again, as we kind of get back to our traditional restart zone here on the front straightaway, as you mentioned on Franklin Street, so far it's exactly this the way I thought it was going to go. Elbows have been up already in the first few minutes as we get set to go back under green. I'm curious to see how much more aggressive Philippe Albuquerque could be. Already up to 5th after starting 8th. Can maybe pick off 1 or 2 as we get set to go back under the green flag.
I do think that the Cadillacs and the Corvettes will want to move forward. This is effectively, this is their backyard race, literally in the shadow of World Headquarters. Still over 1.5 hours to go, and we've come through to the grey flag, and Nick Yellowly's jumped away in the red, white and black number 93 for Acura. defensive line into the first corner thrown by the Sheldon van der Linde BMW at the front of the field. Already a pit stop for remedial work on the left rear of that number 4 Corvette, Tommy Milner, and Dragon Speed's number 81, Rasmus Lind, in the pits as well for Ferrari. So that was the contact between the Corvette and the A0 Porsche. Didn't see what the problem was for the 81 car. They had damage to the right rear in qualifying, broke the toe link, and that car had to come back on the back of a flatbed. That car is running again, and they'll get out to save themselves losing a lap.
How about the move from Nick Tandy, John? Just as you were talking about the toe link on the Dragon Speed car, lunged it in there on Sheldon van der Linde, one of the BMWs in that 25. And Tandy, who again, that Penske Porsche number 7 has now had 3 wins on the season. They could have had 4. They finished second at Laguna Seca. And, you know, he's fired up after starting in row number 3, already pressuring one of the Acuras. And that looks like that's Tom Blomqvist in that second spot. So Nick Tandy is on the gas here early.
It's Chris Wilner and me, John Hindhaugh, in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre. Good to have your company for the Streets of Detroit race this Saturday afternoon into the evening. At the front of the field, Nick Yellerly has made his escape by getting on for 2 seconds. His teammate Tom Blomqvist in the two-tone blue and silver car has Nick Tandy, championship leading Nick Tandy in that number 7 Porsche. First, second this season. And has to just balance wanting to win the race with thinking about the championship. More attention for Roxy again. This time from the recovering Jack Hawksworth. Started at the back of the grid after a post-qualifying technical infraction. And I think that will be looked at, under review. That one will be looked at by race control. Nick Yellerly then leading out by all of a sudden 2.5 seconds, and then the train of cars that is Acura, Porsche, BMW, Wayne Taylor Racing, Cadillac for Philippe Albuquerque, who has been the biggest mover in these early stages here at Detroit. BMW following on from that is Dries Vanthoor, the man who's captured every pole bar this one this season. Then Matt Campbell dropping down from his starting position. Jimmy Bruni moving forward in the bright yellow number 85 from Jack Aiken and the Cadillac Whelan car. He was the best qualifying Cadillac, and he's dropped back to 10th. Check that, 9th. Roman De Angelis for the Heart of Racing Aston. And then Louis Delatraz after that early issue in 11th and about 1.2 seconds off the back of the field. It's still the 2 Fords from the 2 BMWs and the Lamborghini making up the top 5, with Corvette in the shape of Tonio Garcia in the number 3 in 6th position in GTD Pro. That's your in-race update from VP Racing. Pit lane a moment or two ago for the second of the Sealmaster liveried Lexus. Frankie Montecalvo in, and the car in, and Frankie Montecalvo taking it out of the pit lane. Now remember what we said earlier on, and Chris is going to say it again. What's the drive time here, Chris?
Well, John, it's easy. There is no drive time. There's 5-minute minimum, which we have already passed, and there is no maximum. So virtually no drive time means that the Vassar Sullivan Lexus guys took this as an opportunity to maybe switch the strategy up a little bit. Go ahead and get their pit stop in. Now, an hour and 29 minutes is what we're showing now left in this race. Pretty interesting as far as their max fuel capacity on that Lexus. So be interesting to see if they're just playing a little bit of a different strategy to maybe two-stop it if we get a yellow. But certainly interesting. With no drive time, you have a little bit more flexibility on when you can make driver changes and make those pit stops.
Hello to Samantha Tan, sometime IMSA competitor, BMW exponent, of course, tuned in and watching. Hi, Sam. Let's hope we can see you back in IMSA sometime soon. Damage to the right rear of the second placed Ford Multimatic Mustang, the number 65 of Chris Meese. Also, hello to Piers Phillips, whose work is done for the day at Prema, and he's watching the sports cars with us here on IMSA Radio and IMSA TV. Hello, Piers. Excellent work for pole position at the 500. What an effort for that brand new team in IMSA, in IndyCar, excuse me. Say hi to Caroline and the rest of the family from us, won't you? So just under an hour and a half to go from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Les and Christina watching on and supporting AO Racing, hoping they're going to bring Roxy to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in July. Not sure which version of the 77 they will bring. Always a fan favourite though. Thanks for tuning in to Les and Christina McDonald at IMSA Radio, and off again for Albert Costa, this time in the Dragon Speed Ferrari. It's not been their weekend in that rhubarb and custard coloured car. They've gone They've gone straight on at the bottom of turn 3. Oh, good work by Albert. He's got the reverse gear in the Antisocial Social Club apparel car. Did he just miss his brake point, or did he catch a bump? I think a bit of both there. Oh, actually went far enough in to catch the first row of tyres in front of our camera position there. The engine is still running. I hear the V6, the 3-litre V6. Same engine architecture as the 499 prototype. And he's got it going. We stay green. Fastest lap of the race by Nick Tandy in third, 107.759. He has the lap record to his name.
Had personal issues, couldn't make the race weekend in Detroit, so Rasmus gets an opportunity. He's been on these streets before, but in an Indy Next open wheel machine, so had to get adjusted to the GT3 machine. Unfortunately had issues yesterday in qualifying that subdued that session, and then now unfortunately his teammate had issues in the tire barriers. It looks like we're going to have part 2 of this Jack Hawksworth versus Roxy battle on the racetrack. Much cleaner pass there, but John, we did get word that Hawksworth was given a penalty for that contact there with Roxy there a few laps ago. Yeah,
that is avoidable contact, or incident responsibility actually is the terminology, and he's in the will have to come down the pit lane. Here comes Chris Meese. Now this is interesting because there's still an hour and 25 minutes to go. I'm only expecting one stop here, Chris, so this should be one and done for the 65 squad. Multimatic, Ford Multimatic Motorsport, no tyres at all on that car. They did put some fuel in it, but that was about all, and they've left the Michelins on, and the number 1 BMW from Paul Miller Racing has dropped down the field. Neil Verhagen, the BMW Works driver, went off at the 8th corner, comes straight into the pits. He does not bring out a full course yellow, and this looks like their regular stop as well. So I just wonder now if at the front of the field Ford Multimatic Motorsport, Chris, have triggered it all. They've basically said, we're going to go to the end with one of our cars. Now everyone else has to make up their mind in GTD Pro whether they take the chance and stay out, or whether they come in and cover them off.
John, I think this could be the case, although did get word that it was a mechanical black flag actually that brought the Ford Multimatic number 65 in for Chris Mee. So they used that as an opportunity because they had damage on the race car that IMSA deemed that need to be fixed, that they went ahead and pulled him in. You saw the driver change as Frederick Vervish got behind the wheel. And then just now, I think Neil Verhagen had a little bit of an issue just trying to get out of turn 8 to get to pit road. He was able to do so, and they also made a driver change aboard that Paul Miller Racing BMW as Madison Snow will take the reins there. So certainly I think a little variance of strategies, but you're right. I think once they saw the Lexus come down several laps ago, and then obviously now both the Ford Mustang and the BMW coming in, I'd be curious to see if you're Andrea Caldarelli and the FAF Motorsports team, or even Antonio Garcia, when do the floodgates open for the rest of the GTD Pro cars?
It's the voice of Chris Wilner, alongside me, John Hindhaugh, in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre. Unusual pit lane here, spotted by Matty. There is a central line down the middle of the pits, and you are serviced one side or the other. That stands for Indy Next and IndyCar as well this weekend. Just another little quirk of this street circuit that has its start and finish lines in different places, although we're used to that at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Looking forward to that event as well. That comes up next weekend, actually. That is our next IMSA event, with a 4-hour headline race for the Michelin Pilot cars. Also got some Whelen Mazda for you there as well. The next time we'll see the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship runners as they stand right here on the circuit will be the weekend after that. Check that, 2 weekends after that. That will be at the Sealand 6 Hours of the Glen. So that's the weekend after the Le Mans 24 Hours. Quick turnaround for the impressive number, actually, of IMSA teams who will be representing this series and themselves in the 109th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Just a small mistake there by the Neil Verhagen driven #1 car. Madison Snow has taken that car out. So I think that black flag for the... Did you say it was the black flag for the number 65 Ford Multimatic car, Chris? Or was that for the...
Yes, there was a bulletin on the 65, the Ford Multimatic 65 for some damage that was lingering on that Ford Mustang. Yeah, so that was the reason they came in, and then they decided, let's go ahead and do the driver change. Yeah,
makes sense. And that was that damage we saw. That was the brush pass on Roxy relatively early on. At the front of the field, Nick Yellerly now settling into a more cruise mode as his teammate Tom Blomqvist is 3.5 seconds further back down the circuit, which means that by the time that the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th place GTP cars come through turn 3, Nick Yellerly's not in sight. He's already turned left down Bed Street, and he's on his way to Atwater Street and through the little right-left chicane there that takes them onto the waterfront. From turn 5 up to turn 8, part of the old Grand Prix circuit. If you could go straight on there, that would have been part of the old Grand Prix circuit, then double back and reuse Franklin Street the way we're using it as well. So again, that's part of the old GP circuit. Go and have a look at some of the awesome footage that is available on your favourite video site, whichever that is. But Yellerly, excuse me, pulling away. Now, hearing from the all-seeing eye of Aaron Stevens, our producer in Concord, North Carolina at NASCAR Productions, that the Acura second drivers are beginning to show some interest in getting out. And meantime, BMW on Porsche as Sheldon von der Linde tries to go the long way around into the 3rd corner, down at the end of the long straight. Tandy holds his line on the inside. He'll have to get good traction out, and he does. That means he's still got the preferred position as he cuts right-handed down the hill. Quite a significant drop there on Bate Street. I still think that's a bit early. I can't imagine, Chris, that the GTPs are going to go an hour and 15 minutes. I would think maybe an hour, maybe just over an hour with a little bit of fuel saving, which is quite easy to do here. But I can't imagine we're still on an hour and 19 minutes at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be close, John. But, you know, kind of thinking about these races that we've had, these other sprint races in the championship, they typically can go about an hour, but on tracks that are typically around 2 miles, don't forget, this is the shortest racetrack, the shortest circuit for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, 1.7 miles. And so if you can stretch your fuel, that 0.3 of a mile maybe saves several more laps and several more minutes. So 1 hour and 15 minutes is certainly going to push it. But I'd be curious. I may think that with fuel saving, you can get it done, but it's going to be right on the money.
Well, you are braver than I am. If you're up on the pit wall right there, that is rolling the dice. I suspect that some people from the back of the pack might try that one. The day gets worse for the number 1 BMW of Paul Miller Racing. The M4 GT3 Evo already ran on at turn 8, came into the pits straight after that. Madison Snow took it out, but during that pit stop, and I can't tell you whether it was pit in or pit out, there was a pit lane speeding violation that will cost them another trip through the pit lane. And in fact, Madison Snow has already done that, but in doing so has dropped off the lead lap in class. Actually might have dropped 2 laps off the lead lap in class now. We'll have to wait to see when he comes back around. And I'm hearing it confirmed now that that number 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW has dropped 2 laps off the lead. Now what I haven't seen is Jack Hawksworth doing his drive-through. Oh, well, he's got one pit stop to his name, which won't have been a pit stop. That will have been the drive-through, presumably there, Chris. And that was the side-by-side contact with Roxy. Just waiting for confirmation.
Tell you what, Nick Tandy has not relinquished any sort of pressure on Tom Blomqvist and that Meyer-Shank Racing actor. Those two have been locked together nose to tail in that position for second place in GTP for quite some time. So as we ride on board with your race leader, Nick Yelley, who's got clear track ahead, it won't be before too long because, John, you know, 22 cars around this kind of a circuit, lap traffic certainly becomes a factor in a hurry.
And it means that the concentration levels are right up there, and a further distraction for the leader of the race, Nick Yellerly, is the part of the interior on the driver's right-hand side of that elegant curved windscreen is flapping around. I'm not sure what it is. It looks like it's some kind of electrical connection has come adrift, and it's all over the place. It's a nice G sensor at the moment for us to be able to see how much Nick Yellerly is throwing the car around as he comes down to the S's and onto the waterfront again. Andiamo's Italian just on the left-hand side, always the very good lamb chops in there. Through to the end of another lap with still an hour and 15 minutes to go. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us. Well, whatever that piece of the interior flapping around is for Nick Yellerly, it's not slowing him down. He's just done a 1:07 flat, 67 seconds flat, still a couple of seconds away, about a second away from Nick Tandy's fastest race lap here last year, which still stands as the lap record. It's still Sebastian Priault leading in the Ford Mustang that was on pole position. Here are some more stops as Roman De Angelis into the pit lane, so he is getting out of the biggest cubic capacity engine on the grid, that being the V12 in the back of the Aston Martin Heart of Racing team Valkyrie. Ross Gunn, long-time Aston Martin driver, being plugged in, and more trouble for BMW. It's not the number 1 again, is it? I think it is. No. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's down at turn 8 again as well, Nick. Chris, excuse me. They are not having a banner day after having their best qualifying as individuals and indeed as a team to lock out the second row.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the very same spot that Neil Verhagen had issues prior to coming down the pit lane. just several minutes ago. And so with Madison Snow already 3 laps down to the field, trying to get this thing back up, but I'm not sure if he's just waiting on some traffic or having trouble getting that car in reverse, as now some GTP cars John down on the pit lane.
Yeah, and that is Jack Aiken, who was the best qualified of the Cadillacs. He's already out of the car. They're taking good look underneath the back of the Wheel and Engineering Action Express car. Earl Bamber, the New Zealander, has already been strapped in. I think Madison Snow's just taking his time and making sure he doesn't ruin anybody else's race. He's having to look in his mirrors and be guided by our hard-working corner workers and marshals as to whether he can back up. His team will be watching as well. He's done a really smart job there. Race control would have been talking to the team there just to make sure that he still had the engine and he found reverse and he could move out of that. Now, in from the sharp end of the field, the number 60 qualifying on the outside of the front row, Tom Blomqvist into the pit lane. Colin Brown now put behind the wheel, and that is by no means going to make that car go any slower. 2 excellent drivers. They're all full pros at the front of this field. Porsche engine revving within an inch of its life as they scrub off 145 miles an hour as they hit the brakes at the end of Jefferson Avenue, go through that little cutout at turn 3. The big V8 turbo, first saw service in '18 high, and the engine pressed back into service for the IMSA regulations, the GTP LMDHs, and it has been a brilliant start to the season, Chris Wilner, for Porsche Penske Motorsport here in IMSA.
It really has. You've heard the term Porsche or Penske perfect, and that's pretty much what they've been throughout the first handful of races this season. Obviously, we've documented this, the Nick Tandy and Felipe Nasser car, the car number 7, that's been so stout at the beginning of this year, winning the Rolex, backing it up with a win at Sebring, and then of course Long Beach. But then it was the sister car that finally got things turned around. They were tired of running second to the 7, so that was Matthew Jaminet and of course Matt Campbell, who have been together for many years now in the Porsche program, getting their first win of the season at Laguna Seca. So it's going to be tough to dethrone either of those cars this season. I feel like with that 290-some point lead that the 7 car has over the field, you've got to just manage the rest of this season and take every point you can get, because basically a championship goes through Penske at this point, and it'll be interesting to see who can maybe take the fight to them. And so far, it's been Acura and Meyer-Shank so far here this weekend, as Nick Yelly's done a great job.
Yeah, he'll take the points at the start of any league season, if you will. Points in the bank at the start of a big game or the start of a league season, and think of a IMSA championship as a league season for these cars, 12 weekends of racing. And in comes Antonio Garcia out of second place in GTD Pro for the bright yellow Corvette, and he is already out. That means that Alexander Sims, the bespectacled Alexander Sims, is in the car, the British driver. The driving changeover of the pilots, that is not the determining factor here. It would normally be the fuel, but when you come in this early, you're not having to put a full tank of fuel in. We have the advantage of looking at the virtual fuel tanks on the GTP cars. If you look at IMSA telemetry GTP, go and search for that, you'll see what we're seeing in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre. But Nick Yellerly has still almost 60% remaining, with just coming down to 1 hour and 9 minutes still to run, and 3.6 seconds over Nick Tandy. The 2 Brits then fighting it out at the front of the field for Acura, for Porsche, then it's BMW and Cadillac, making it 4 different manufacturers at the head. They set is controlled, by the way. He has served that drive-through, but is yet to have his first pit stop, so effectively slightly out of position. They're trying to work a little bit of strategy here, maybe putting themselves in line for the BDO No Strategy Award for GTD Pro. He's got 8.5 seconds on Mike Rockenfeller, who's taken over the number 64 Ford Multimatic Racing GT3 from Seb Prio, who qualified on pole position, 3 wide for a moment, as our leader threads the needle down into turn number 3. Then it's Max Hezzer, second driver in the 48 Paul Miller Racing car, the top 6 in GTD Pro, made up by Faf Motorsports and Marco Mappelli, again the second driver. And Fred Verviche is taking over the number 65. That was the damaged number 65 that was in the pit lane earlier. We've still got an hour and 8.5 minutes to go. More pit stop for Sheldon van der Linde in the BMW number 25. That's your VP update. Chris Wilner and John Hindorf. Well, I've not sat down since the start of the race, Chris. This has been the typical edge of seat. You really Tandy, Chris, has stayed out, so Nick needs some clear air now in the number 7 to try and get all the performance he's got out of that Michelin tyre set he started on. No tyres for the leader, fuel and a new driver. Strategy coming in here, Chris.
Absolutely, and this could be the case of the what we like to call the overcut. If Nick Tandy can get an outlap that's quicker than the in-lap that's quicker than the outlap here of Renger van der Zande as he gets up to speed.
And this is where the pit crews and the strategists earn their corn. We've always said here on imsaradio and on the Radio Show Limited network of channels, there's just as much talent on the pit box as there is behind the steering wheel. To get them out into some kind of clear, and that sort of happened with the number 93. They've got the next car ahead of them as they go down Franklin towards turn 1. The next car ahead of them on track is Tymon van der Helm for JDC Miller Motorsports, and he's more than halfway down Jefferson on the way down from 2 to 3. So in terms of track position, and we talked about this in the Porsche Keys to the Race, track position being king. It's not just about being in front, it's about where you come out after your pit stop. And now that number 93 in the hands of Renger van der Zande can absolutely put the hammer down. He's got an hour and 6 minutes to see where it all shakes out. Right now Nick Tandy leads but has not made a stop for Penske Motorsport. Porsche Penske Motorsport. He's got 2.5 seconds on Philippe Albuquerque, who was very racy at the drop of the green. Half a second further back, Dries van Tor, and the top 4 made up by Matt Campbell in the number 6 Porsche 963. None of those 4 have made their first pit stop. What we think is going to be, if we stay green, their only pit stop. That's what Chris Wilner is saying. He's been on the slide rule working out the fuel calculations, and still 51% for Nick Tandy. Philippe Albuquerque, 54% of his fuel allowance, his virtual fuel tank, the energy supply, if you will, from the hybrid and from that VP Racing fuel. But that was a cracking piece of work from the 93 team, which of course is run by Honda now, isn't it, Chris? And Honda Racing Developments, Honda Racing Company rather, HRC, they've brought all of their racing operations on 2 and 4 wheels under that very historic livery and banner, and they're effectively calling the strategy on that 93 car. And Renger van der Zande is benefiting from a great call right now.
Absolutely, and it's a very interesting situation when you have two cars under the Meyer-Shank Racing banner with Kerr Agajani, and yet one is being strategized and basically, like you said, effectively called the race by Honda. It's Honda Racing Corporation USA. Renger van der Zande told me actually a couple of weeks ago that Mike runs the car, but from the engineering side, it's all HRC, which they've always done. So they take their suggestions and their input on the setup and the engineering aspects of this race car, and then Mike offers some of his input from a team owner's perspective, and they kind of collaborate and work together. But very interesting how that kind of combination works with that 93 car, and so far they've done wonders here this weekend, as it looks like we've got the Wayne Taylor Racing, the sister car, number 40 on the pit lane, Jordan Taylor behind the wheel.
So that is their substantive stop then, as the number 40 Cadillac, it's the second of their cars, their lead car leading the race, but now is the only car not to have stopped, as both the Porsche Penske Motorsport cars are in the pit lane. Nick Tandy sprints out from the left-hand side around the front of the car and hurdles the wall. It's taken a while to get his teammate in, but that's all right. The fuel hose is still there. They're covering the driver change with the fuel hose. I think this is really sensible, because the other teams who came in earlier were actually waiting, and he's going to get out ahead. They've jumped the 93 car in the pits, and there's your strategic move. That is Porsche Penske perfect on pit stops. They were waiting only for the fuel, and they covered the driver change with enough fuel, they hope, to get to the end of the race. And they've come out ahead of the 93 Acura of Renger van der Zande. The effective lead of the race then, where is Matt Campbell? Will have to pick up the number 6 car, but they turned that one around as well. That's right on the tail now of that Acura of Renger van der Zande, the red, white and black car. Still waiting for the final pit stopper, and it's not good news for Philippe Albuquerque, or is it? Has Wayne Taylor, who is heading to Le Mans, of course, after this race. Test day next Sunday, and we'll have Chris Wilner and I on tenterhooks in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre. When does Philippe Albuquerque pit? Have they just got to ride it out now? It's 26 seconds at the front of the field, Chris. Are they just going to stay out there now and hope and pray that we get the Chevrolet Corvette safety car?
I think that's one strategy, but I also think that Philippe did a nice job on fuel save in the early part of his stint. Remember, he charged 3 positions at the start of the race and then kind of held his spot in 5th. He actually lost some time to the race leaders, and then when the floodgates opened on pit lane, we saw the leaders start to pit. That opened up the gap that Philippe Albuquerque has now on the field. You mentioned 26 seconds. This is the shortest pit lane in all of IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship rounds. So it only takes about 12 seconds to get from the head of pit lane and out. So if he can manage this gap and run his fuel and his energy consumption to the end of the brink,
athletics meetings where you used to run the first 600 meters or so in lanes. I love those at the end, normally the very final events of a track weekend, and it's really hard to tell who is doing what, because effectively they are all literally in their own lanes, And that's a bit like what we have at the moment. We've not seen the stagger unwind yet as to where Philippe Albuquerque really is. 27.1, he's pulling away. He is pulling away at the head of the field. What we've got to look at then is how close Felipe Nasr is at the moment, and the answer is that 27.1 seconds. Is that enough for a pit stop? I think not, but it's not far. And if Albuquerque can keep going, he did a 108 flat last time, a 108.4 from Nasr in second place. If he can squeak that out to over 30 seconds, then we've got a really interesting bit of calculation to do. The pit lane is very short, but it will be a driver change and a top up of fuel. He's on 49%, and we have run 41, call it 42 minutes of the 100-minute race. So he's less than half of his fuel still remaining, but he's still got more than half the race remaining by about 18 minutes. So he's going to need some fuel, but not a full tank. So how much will they put in? Wow. Absolutely incredible. It's a short race in terms of time, but it's full of incidents. And another one for Renger van der Zande. Not going to help him. He's dropped just a half a second behind Nick Tandy, but he's Nick Tandy's car, should I say, which is now being driven by Felipe Nasr. But he's just clipped the wall there. Looked like a fairly straight rub on the wall, though, Chris. I don't think he's done any damage.
No, I don't think so. And unlike what we saw with the Dragon Speed GTD Pro car with Rasmus Lind yesterday in qualifying where it broke the toe link, that kind of square impact, yeah, it may rub some of the lettering off the Michelin rubber, or maybe some cosmetic damage, but right now, able to keep it full song. But certainly you don't want to hit it any more than that, that's for sure. These concrete walls are very unforgiving.
White wall tyres have been certainly fashionable in this area of the world in past decades. Maybe he's just trying to get a little bit of historical feel to that car as he goes round. If you're just joining us, wherever you've been, you've missed 43, 44 minutes of absolute edge of the seat action on the streets of Detroit. Downtown Detroit now, the venue for the Chevrolet Detroit Sports Car Classic for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Started off with two Acuras on the front row. The best Acura now is in third position. The best car at the moment is the Cadillac V-Series of Wayne Taylor Racing, and it's 27.8, and still a little bit of time being edged into that lead. Oh, now 40 seconds as Felipe Nasr has dropped back. What's happened there? The gap's just rattled out to 40.5 seconds, and Felipe Albuquerque all of a sudden, no, that cannot be right, because Renger van der Zande is closer behind than that. What's happened to Felipe Nasr in the number 7 car? That is the car we need to track down, unless it's just a timing glitch. I still see it on the track, just going onto the front straight now, effectively between 2 and 3, and he's ahead. That's why. That's the change. The timing just hasn't quite caught up with what's going on. So Felipe Nasr ahead of Renger van der Zande. That was from the pit stop, and the timing has settled back down to 27 seconds. Just for a moment there, I was panicking a little bit, as if it had been 40 seconds, you would have been calling Felipe Nasr in straight away, if that had been the case. So where's your money? Sorry, Chris.
I was going to say, John, I'd be curious if it was the fresher tires that were the advantage for Felipe Nasr. Remember, he pitted a couple of laps later than Renger van der Zande, or what really Nick Yellowly did. So what we missed on the screen was the fact that that was just a pure case of fresher tires. Now, we talked about before the show that the tire bag here at Detroit, not as maybe as significant as what other racetracks and other circuits we go to on the schedule as far as where the deg is. So you can make tires last longer, but I think when you just look at the all-out fire-off speed or the initial pace on these Michelin tires, I think that's kind of the difference with some of these overtakes.
Yeah, I'm not sure they did take tyres actually at the pit stop. I'm not sure anybody has. Michelin's. On the set of Michelin softs on which they started, so the card never went up on the jacks. Final bit of belt tightening before they get out onto the track and rejoin right in behind the new leader, Felipe Nasr, and that has jumped again another position. Renger van der Zande for Acura Meyershank Racing now down to third. At the start of the pit stop cycle, they were leading, but a bit of traffic and excellent strategy from the Porsche Penske Motorsport squad and Wayne Taylor, and they are now ahead of that pole-sitting car. Another problem, that's down at turn one, and it is the BMW number one that has overrun. Should have turned left there onto Rivard Street, ran on down Franklin. Just wanted to have a look at the old circuit, maybe. Now, yellow flags out there at the moment, covering that for Madison Snow. I'm going to put this out there, Chris. I am not an engineer, but I think that BMW of Paul Miller Racing, the number one car, I think they've got some braking issues, maybe some ABS problems, sensor, I don't know. But that car is not happy in the braking areas over the bumps.
It would certainly feel like that's the case, especially with how many times we've seen a very similar, we saw it in turn 8 a couple of times with Neil Verhagen aboard before he relinquished that car over to Madison. But you're right, something's going on with that BMW to have 3 instances of basically just overshooting the corner and having to fall into the runoff. And boy, they could use a turnaround. They finished 10th at Laguna Seca in the first race of the sprint series for the GTD Pro class. And I know talking to Madison earlier a couple weeks ago, they were eager to kind of get back on their right footing after getting a podium finish, I should say, at Sebring. So having some struggles today here at Detroit for Paul Miller Racing, especially in that one car.
Hello to Kelly from the middle of Ireland. Bring on Dan Harper, of course. He says, I'm hoping Dan can take inspiration from and emulate fellow Ulsterman John Watson's epic drive through the field to victory at the Detroit Grand Prix in 1982. That was an incredible drive from John Watson. Those with very long memories. And it's sad to say, I now realise how long ago that is. I would have thought that was much closer in time than 1982. Mind, having said that, I was doing some classic commentary for TV from Spa last weekend, looking at cars that I did commentary on at Le Mans, thinking, yeah, that was about, wasn't that about maybe 9 or 10 years ago? Oh no, it was 23 years ago that I was commentating on those cars, so time can be a little elastic sometimes. Half distance, 50 minutes on the clock in 35 seconds time. Felipe Nasr leads now by 4 seconds from Ricky Taylor, who's taken over the number 10. Swift pit stops and great strategy. Remember, we'll be announcing our BDO No Strategy awards for the GTP and the GTD Pro class. So, at imsaradio, if you want to get in touch with us here in the For Performance Global Broadcast Centre. Let's take our Pelotti mid-race recap at the Chevrolet Detroit Sports Car Classic. 42 laps gone on this tight and challenging 1.6 and a bit mile circuit. At the moment, it's Felipe Nasr who's leading by just on 3.2 seconds. Just the one caution, and it was a short caution for debris on the circuit. I was absolutely certain we would lose a car by now. We have not. We started 22, we've counted them out, and we are counting them past this finish line on Franklin every lap as well. More than halfway through, just 49 minutes and 21:20 19, 18, 17 seconds to go. That's your Pilotti mid-race recap. So what are you taking from the first half of the race, Chris? Have you seen any? It's been ridiculously competitive. Still battles going on for the third step on the podium between the number 93 Acura, between the Acura and the Porsche number 6. Seeing any patterns emerge?
Well, I've seen plenty of action, and that's what I've really been enjoying. It's just the fact that it is an all-out brawl out on these streets right now between both GTP and GTD Pro. I think what it comes to the halfway point here, it's just been the strategy calls. I mean, not only what Porsche Penske was able to call with the 7-car Felipe Nasser and getting them the overcut to the lead, but also what Jack Hawksworth's been able to do in GTD Pro. Remember, they started tail end of the field after failing post-qualifying technical inspection yesterday, and they had that early pit stop after the black flag for incidental contact, but that actually helped them being off sequence and put that Lexus at the front of the field. As we'll see what happens as they go the rest of the way, although it looks like one of the sister car actually having trouble there in turn 8 aboard that 15 machine of Parker Thompson, who currently sits a lap down. But what a run, though, for strategy calls for both Vassar Sullivan in that 14 car as well as the Porsche Penske number 7.
Pulls away. That is the car that normally runs the number 12 as a GTD entry. Pushed up into GTD Pro to give them another bullet in the gun, as it were. They did the same in the opposite way at Long Beach. Sometimes requires a little shuffling of drivers. Still waiting for Jack Hawksworth to make a pit stop. He started the race 12 seconds ahead of the rest of the field in the number 14 car. That car started dead last after a post-qualifying infraction. Great battle going on. BMW ahead of Colin Brown and the FAF Lamborghini going down onto Bates Street. Turn number 4, downhill to 5. Then the short chute into the chicane. Oh, down the inside. Brilliant manoeuvre by Marco Wittmann. And poor Colin Brown didn't know what happened there, but he did have at least have the wherewithal of brain capacity left to understand that there was a car on the inside and not turn in. It was a late move, but it was fair, and Colin Brown also played his in that overtake.
This is what you call, John, a strong move of what Marco Wittmann was able to do there in the entry to the corner. And, you know, it's interesting with these BMW TMM RLL cars. You know, we talk about how good they've been in qualifying. It's can you put a whole race together? And I know that they wanted to go for that 5th consecutive pole with Dries Vanthoor yesterday and were unable to do so. But it seemed like as the longer the race goes, that those cars just begin to come to light. So we'll see if the gap starts to shrink just a little bit, and both of those cars riding 5th and 6th right now can take the fight to the Porsches as well as the Acuras at the front of the field. But it's been fun to watch. There's some daring moves out there for sure.
It's Chris Wilner there in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre. Hello from Gulf in Ontario. Great looking race, says Kevin Conyer. I hope I've said that right. Go Faf in the plaid Lamborghini. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch. Now, Felipe Nasser with what is, in terms of this race, a comfortable 3 seconds. Of course, that could disappear in a heartbeat if we have a full course caution and the appearance of the Chevrolet Corvette safety car. Just looking at the battles down the field, Mathieu Jaminet in the second of the Porsches in 4th position for Porsche Penske Motorsport, the number 6 car. That's the one with the white pinstripes on the nose. Almost within striking distance now of a spot on the podium. Held at the moment by Renger van der Zande in the red, white and black, formerly the pole-sitting car. Well, it was the pole-sitting car. It's now sitting in 3rd. Jaminet putting some pressure on. No pressure on the leader at the moment. Down onto Jefferson for the 48th time. Time certain race. They're under 3/4 of an hour to go. Let's take a quick look at our VP in race update. Felipe Nasser leading by those 3.5 seconds. Ricky Taylor for Wayne Taylor Racing in the number 10 Cadillac in second. Renger van der Sande in third place. And then it's Mathieu Jaminet. Those top four separated by just on 6.5 seconds. Vassar Sullivan, Lexus and Jack Hawksworth from the back of the grid to the lead in GTD Pro, but still owing us a pit stop. He'll not get to the end from here, and his teammate has not yet been behind the wheel. It's Mike Rockenfeller, 13, call that 14 seconds behind for what was the Paul Sitting Ford Multimatic Motorsport cars. Prio qualified on pole. Mike Rockenfeller has taken it over. Alexander Sims and the Corvette, number 3, next up, and that car's the fastest lap of the race in GTD Pro with a 1:10.267. Max Hesse in 4th position for Paul Miller Racing with the BMW. He's now almost a minute back from a podium position. 57 minutes gone, 43 to go. That's your VP Racing in race update. Chris Wilner and John Hindorf on the mics at the 4 Performance Global Broadcast Centre. So Jack Hawksworth continues at the front of the GTD Pro field, Chris, and he's actually still turning some very, very good laps. A 1:10.9 last time around, as opposed to a 12.3 from Mike Rockenfeller. I presume he's burning off the VP Racing fuel, and that Vassar Sullivan Lexus is actually getting quite light now.
It's been impressive to watch the Hawk over the last couple of laps and just see those lap times, as you referenced, just continue to drop. And I'd be curious too if the message, because of that kind of off-sequence pitch strategy, was just to run it hard and kind of wait and see what happens here at the finish of this race. But certainly Jack Hawk not in fuel save mode like we like to see some other drivers do. So we'll see how long it lasts, but it's been impressive for Jack Hawksworth, that entire Vassar Sullivan Lexus team. I mean, it's just been really, really impressive to see the kind of different strategy call. Obviously, they had the penalty, but then to come out and rebound and then throw out lap times like they have, clearly the speed is there with this car. We'll see how long they can run with it. Still 41.5 to go.
AJ Wolf doesn't tell me where he is in the world, but he says if Porsche fumbles this win streak, I'll shave my head. Dangerous in sports car racing to make those kind of promises. Goodness me. Nasser into the pit, right, into the pits, the leader now of the GTD Pro category. They're pitted on the left-hand side of the pit lane, so that means an easy jump over the wall for Jack Hawksworth. Actually, I say that, you can get too close to the wall and it stops your team working on it. So that will be Aaron Thielitz jumping into that car. That squeal of the tyres as the Michelins were spun up there. No tyres again, just VP Racing fuel. It's a tidy stop, but it's going to drop them time. Already down to 3rd. Where do they come out? Is he ahead of Max Hesse? He is. So that is a net. That's a massive net gain. There's another contender for the BDO no strategy. Started dead last after a disqualification, effectively, from the qualifying session there, Chris, with the car out of regulations. And they've gone long, and it has worked for them. And in fact now, they're only about 7.5 seconds away from the lead. That's a cracking job.
Absolutely. Tip of the cap to the entire Vassar Sullivan Racing crew, and I think that just goes to show that they knew the gap that they would have when they called Jack Hawksworth down the pit lane. You know, we referenced the early pit stop with the penalty. They figured that if this race continued to go green, they would start to see the gap separate with the leaders, and they would have enough time to where they would only lose 1 or 2 positions on pit lane to get that car full of fuel and back out on the racetrack. So really smart heads-up driving, not only by Jack to throw out some monster lap times there before going down the pit lane, but then also for the crew to have a good quick pit stop, fill it up with BP Racing fuel, and send it back out in that third spot, and still in contention in this race after starting last.
Just watching the gap at the front of the field with still 39 minutes to go. That is something in the region of 23, 24 laps. A bit more than that, maybe. We're on lap 52 at the moment, and the gap is down to 2.2 seconds. The leader, in fairness, has just come through traffic, but Ricky Taylor is gaining. Took a 2 or 3 tenths out of the lead last time around, another tenth or so here. It's fractional, but that gap is coming down, Chris.
It really is, and Ricky is on the loud pedal right now. You talk to anybody in the paddock with that Wayne Taylor Racing team, they are desperate to get a result after just a struggle start to this season, and the reuniting with Cadillac. Of course, they have been continuing to chip away at it. I know Ricky has been pretty vocal saying they're continuing to find speed with this race car, but to come back to a place that you've been so successful at, whether it be Belle Isle, but of course with them winning this race last year on the streets of Detroit, nothing would be more of a redemption story than get Wayne Taylor Racing back in the victory lane. So you know Ricky's going to give it his all as he continues to chip away at the lead. Big battles though here in GTD Pro, continuing on with that FAF Motorsports, Marco Mappelli in the Lamborghini trying to fend off a couple of, a Ford Mustang and a BMW, John.
Two front-engine cars going at the mid-engined machine, and the side-by-side contact going down in the braking area. Turn number 3. Elbows out for everybody, and down from nowhere, the number 48. We've seen the team car with brake problems, and the BMW of Max Hesse and Paul Miller Racing. That was a bit more than hip and shoulder there, and there's damage to both of those cars. That will be looked at. And meantime, as quick as we are praising the Vassar Sullivan RCF in third place, Aaron Tielitz has just taken the car over. He'll have to come back down pit lane because they fumbled the pit stop. He's in to the pits now, and all that hard work, all that great strategy is going to cost them at least one position, possibly 2 or 3, as they'll pop out right in front of this battle. Someone over the wall before the car stopped. Now down in turn 3 just a moment or 2 ago. 1, 2 little touches, and then, well, just a moment or 2 ago. 1, 2 little touches, and then, well, that was an odd one, because it looked to me, and I'll take your thoughts on this, Chris, as well, as we've got a full course yellow. Full course yellow. This has thrown the race wide open. 36 minutes and 36 seconds to go. This will be for debris on the circuit. But it looked to me as though Max Hesse had that car stopped, and then it just ran on. He was nowhere near the back of the cars. It wasn't as if he approached at unabated speed. But there is...
Colin Brown, for sure, I would use this opportunity. You've got a couple of cars behind you that are a lap down. Ross Gunn, maybe the last car on the lead lap, could opt to come down as well. But for sure, I think that's your strategy play. You see what you can make of it, and then tell your driver to get elbows up on the restart.
You're not going to be any worse off. Earl Bamber's still on the lead lap as well. I think, is he? No? Is that 10 car, the 10 Wayne Taylor Cadillac gone a lap down? Yes. He just gone a lap down. He had just gone a lap down to the number 7 car. He's sitting behind the leader and in front of the... No, sorry, that's the wrong car. My apologies. I should have been looking at the 31, not the 10. I'm trying to look at about 17 different screens at the same time here. I will wait till he comes round. Let me put it that way for Earl Bamber. But for sure, Ross Gunn is still on the lead lap. He passes the damage in that Heart of Racing Valkyrie.
Pass around has started.
There are
Between the Paul Miller BMW and the Multimatic, the Ford Multimatic Racing Ford Mustang under review. Effectively, that is actually what has caused this second intervention from the safety car. Now the pits will open next time around for the prototypes. This is where we find out. This is where we find out who is going to roll the dice. Just across the river, there is a casino. Who's feeling lucky now? Put it all on red, put it all on black. No prototypes, I reckon, came in. No prototypes came in. They are going to play the hand that they have got next time around. The pits will open for the GT cars. And we have got, I reckon, the top 8 down to Roxy and Lauren Heinrich on the lead lap. I'm very surprised, Chris. I'm like you. I think I might have just had a little roll.
I agree, and I think as a race car driver that, you know, we always talk to them and they always say fresh tires are everything in the world. And yeah, while the tire deg would not be as dramatic here in Detroit, if you're Ross Gunn or Jordan Taylor, why not? I mean, give yourself some sort of different strategy call, some sort of an advantage on your Michelin tires at the back of the field. Maybe you could pick off a couple. So I think the fact we didn't see any GTPs come down pit lane rather, to get a fresh set of Michelin tires, I think is the telltale for what we'll see with these GTD Pro competitors. Because I was hoping to see maybe Roxy come down, Aaron Thielitz, of course, with the issue that they had having to do the drive-through. Give yourself kind of a different strategy play, but I think everybody's going to be content where they're at, and now it's going to be up to the driver to see what kind of positions you can make here in the final 34 minutes.
It's the voice of Chris Wilner with me, John Hindorf. Just looking, well, who is best off for fuel in the virtual fuel tank. It's Philip Eng in 5th position in the BMW number 24. He's got 58%. He's best off. Colin Brown in the number 60, Acura in 7th, and Ross Gunn in 9th. Couple on 49 and 48 as well. Ricky Taylor in 2nd in the Cadillac. Well, we've had a few takers from the GTD field. Fred Verveesh has come in for Ford Multimatic Racing in the 65 Mustang, and it will be 4 tyres on that damaged car. Nicky Katzberg for Corvette Racing taking new tyres as well. They do not need fuel. The Mustang and the Chevy fighting it out on pit lane with the Dragon Speed, number 81 Ferrari. And out has gone the Lexus as well of Parker Thompson, and it's a longer stop for the Mustang for remedial work after that coming together. They're still on pit lane. The 4 Corvette is gone. The Dragon Speed number 81 Ferrari is gone, and Parker Thompson in the 15 Lexus is gone. Damage to the sill and the left-hand side exhaust on that number 65 Mustang as it leaves the pit lane. My goodness me, they have really rolled the dice. Under 35 minutes to go here on the streets of Detroit for the Chevrolet Detroit Sports Car Classic. It's IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Racing
on a Saturday evening. If you are just joining us, you might have timed it just nicely. Pick up the highlights or the replay on the archive on the official IMSA YouTube channel. It is worth watching the first part of this race. There's been plenty going on, and strategy as well as pace has played its part. Chris Wilner, a restart now. Porsche, Cadillac, Acura, Porsche, 2 BMWs and Acura. Then the second of the Cadillacs and the Aston Martin Valkyrie. All on the same lap.
This is where you reach up and you pull those seat belts just a little bit tighter. You saw the shot of Mike Shank, of course, president of Mike Shank, or Meyer Shank Racing, I should say, and you see some nervous looks on the crew members' faces, the strategists' faces. This is what we like to say, the pay window opens. This is where the opportunity comes to set yourself up for the rest of this race. So it's going to be exciting. I think if you're Felipe Nasser, it's about timing this restart. Ricky Taylor, I should say, it's about keeping that pace, and then everyone else, it's just about finding an opportunity into that brake zone, into turn one, to maybe set yourself up for an overtake, because this is where probably the biggest opportunity will be to make those moves here for the finish.
Now let's keep an eye on the safety car lights. The category split has happened. That basically means all of the GTP cars go ahead of all of the GTD Pro cars. That's why it was worth coming in for a new set of tyres. Lights are out on the Corvette safety car. And that then scrambles away at the front of the field. And it will be down to Felipe Nasser to come back to the restart point, which is at the finish line, which is just round this. And then he has got a super start, and he's pulled out something over a second as he goes across the line. Brilliant restart from Nasser. Ricky Taylor holds on to second. It's line astern, nose to tail for the GTP cars. Mike Rockefeller led them back to green. And the number 64 Ford Multimatic Motorsport Ford Mustang with Alexander Sims for Corvette in second. The Lamborghini of Pfaff up into third. And would you believe it, after their trials and tribulations, Paul Miller Racing are in fourth position ahead of Aaron Tielitz in the recovering, for the second time, Vassar Sullivan Racing number 14. And that's the car that is the full season GTD Pro entry. So that's the one that they need to score points. What a topsy-turvy race, and it has played out for some of those cars and teams who have had problems. Chris Wilner and John Heindorf. Oh, and a penalty for that Max Hesse, Paul Miller Racing, for causing that incident that put the debris on the track. And now we've got a Corvette slow as well, coming out of the penultimate corner. Great manoeuvre from Lauren Heinrich in the EO Racing Roxy, doing to others what was done to them early on. And it was, ironically enough, one of the Corvettes that was in trouble. I think it was Nicky Katzberg, who's just ahead of Fred Vervees. So that'll be Nicky Katzberg in the number 4 car. But a brilliant opportunist manoeuvre taken there by Lauren Heinrich, now up into 5th position, Chris.
What happened earlier in the race when those two got together, it was Jack Hawksworth behind the wheel. This time, Lauren Heinrich, the one doing the move on Aaron Tielitz. And you're right, this is the go time. This is the opportunity, able to lunge that car into the corner, and just got enough room from Aaron Tielitz to complete the pass. But unfortunately, the issue with the Corvette Racing number 4 of Nicky Katzberg got caught in that as well. As you take a look, we'll get a look at a replay here, but the right on board with Ricky Taylor as he continues to try to track down Felipe Nasser, who's virtually gone. It takes him a minute. Once we get onto Franklin Street here, we'll see the tail end, as now we get a look at the replay. And here's you right on board with Aaron Tielitz, and coming through, Roxy with the gold nails and all, trying to get some rebound here at the late going.
25 minutes to go, and serving the drive-through, Paul Miller Racing, number 48. Max Hesse will lose ground. The only sliver of hope from that is that everybody is still very close together coming off the safety car. So he, yes, has dropped some real estate, but not that much. Meantime, in the GTP battles, 2.5 seconds at the front of the field. Porsche Penske Motorsport 963, Felipe Nasr. The car with the black pinstripes on the front of the car is the number 7, and it leads from the Ricky Taylor-driven Wayne Taylor racing car. How about a little bit of Saturday night street fighting from the street car-based class? And it's Corvette, Ford and Ferrari battling it out at the back end of the field. That's 7th, 8th and 9th. Nicky Katzberg, Fred Vervish, Albert Costa with a waiting brief at the moment. He's looking at the back of the number 65 Ford Multimatic Motorsport car, and another slow car. That'll be the BMW rejoining right into this battle, but that's the number 1 car, Madison Snow, who is laps down, 5 laps away from that battle. And the yellow and purple, or the yellow and rhubarb colour, that's incident responsibility from the BMW on the Ford, as we reported, has been served. Already gone through, and it dropped that car down to 8th position for Max Hesse. Side by side again, old enemies here down at turn 3, Chris, with Corvette and Mustang together, the two big American GT brands in this race. And they are battling it out as if it was for the lead. It is not, but you wouldn't think it. It's for 6th and 7th position.
It's also for bragging rights, with both of these manufacturers being in the backyard in Michigan, so they want to one-best each other. And so what a great move for Nicky Katzberg to get around Fred Vervish, but you continue to see that Alexander Sims just hounding Mike Rockenfeller here, Rocky at the front of the field. So Ford versus Corvette here at the late stages at Detroit, something we like to have scripted, and certainly this story is playing out for a good fight, an old-fashioned American muscle battle at the finish.
And if you go on the rundown from the top of that class, it's Mustang, Corvette, Lamborghini Huracan, Porsche 911, Lexus RCF. The top 5, the top 5 are all separate manufacturers. The first repeat is that Nicky Katzberg Corvette in behind the Aaron Telitz driven Lexus RCF. So the variety on show here at the sharp end of the field. Great work by Corvette Racing, by Pratt Miller, to get Alexander Sims out into 2nd place, and he's hassling the back of the leader at the moment. Rockenfeller from Sims, from Lauren Heinrich for Farfaneo Racing there as they head onto Franklin Street now, turning right-handed. And the RCF's there as well, top 5, absolutely on the same short piece of straight as they go through turn 1, through the red and white area on the circuit. Further up the field, the battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I've just realised Jordan Taylor's on the back of that as well. At 8th. This is how we love it. Yes, but they've been slightly closed up a little bit. The BMW that's in there is the number 24 car of Philip Eng. He's still got more energy than anybody else, but he's picked up a bit of extra bodywork. I think that's from the back of the Porsche number 6. Yes, it is. Mathieu Jaminet has lost one of the diffuser strakes from the left-hand rear, right-hand rear maybe, just slightly made contact from Philip Eng in the number 24 BMW, and he's carrying a bit of carbon fibre that will be doing some strange things to his aerodynamics, I reckon there, Chris, on the left front of that BMW.
I think so. As he goes down Jefferson, they get up to about 180 miles an hour before they break into that turn number 3, and certainly with that piece of carbon fiber right on the front splitter, you can see it here. He locks up the left front tire. Oh, and he gets a little bit of a aero wash there as well. He's going to have his hand full, but unfortunately, you don't have time to come down pit road to fix it. So right now, you're going to have to drive with what you have, and it's going to create quite a experience for Philip Eng here to finish out this race with a piece of carbon fiber stuck in the front splitter.
Yeah, that is something that I think they would like to get rid of. They'll be watching the temperatures very, very carefully. Radiators in the front there, not just for the water temperature, but for the oil as well. And these engines run hard and run hot. Max Hesse coming out of the pit lane again, as we, a moment or two ago, also had Jordan Taylor in the runoff at turn number 8 at the end of the run down at Water Street before he turned left onto St Antoine. Well, he didn't, he went straight on. Great noise from the number 23 Ross Gunn in the Aston Martin, the Heart of Racing Valkyrie, on the lead lap, 13 seconds away from the lead, and just about to put a lap on the Tymon van der Helm JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche, the bright yellow car right ahead of him. Incredible noise from the V12 Cosworth engine. No turbochargers. The street car puts out nearly 1,100 horsepower, and incredibly, it still meets emissions regulations. You can take it into the clean air zone in London if you're going into town or parking up at the airport without having to pay the excess. It is Euro 6 compliant in road car form. It is the first of the ACO hypercars in IMSA competition. It's probably running a little bit heavier than they would want it to at the moment, with a balance of performance that is allowing IMSA to gather information on that car. But what a thing it is. It reminds me so much of some of the Group C cars of the late 80s into the early 90s through the 80s. Absolutely incredible look of the car. Interesting design on that, Chris, is that the rear wing is fixed, and as you're only allowed, because you're only allowed a single movable aerodynamic device, tunable aerodynamic device, and they've chosen to have that in the front of the Valkyrie. So it's in that mouthpiece behind the front splitter. There is a tunable wing in there, and that means the rear wing has to stay set. And how they tune the rear wing is by affecting the rake of the car, the ride height of relatively the front to the back of the car and the rake of the car. It's not unheard of to do that, but it is unusual. Just another way of looking at the problem of getting a car to go very fast for up to 24 hours. And of course, we'll see two of those cars at the Circuit de la Sarthe next weekend for the test. 16 minutes to go before anything happens. Let's take a final VP in race update and check the positions of all the cars still running. In GTD Pro, Ford Multimatic Racing have led from pole position other than through the pit stop cycles. Chevy Corvette and the number 3 Alexander Sims car have worked their way up to second. That is the fastest car on the track, 1:10.267. And the second car down in 6th for Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller, just put in a 10.5. Third, another improver, Lamborghini Huracan, Pfaff Motorsports, just over the river from Canada. A proud Canadian team from Ontario, and the top 6 made up of AO Racing's Porsche, last year's winners here. Vassar Sullivan's full season car, what an up and down couple of days they've had, but they're solidly in 5th at the moment. And then the Corvette at the front of the field. Porsche, Penske Motorsport lead, but not by much. This one is not over. 3/4 of a second now between Nasser and Ricky Taylor in the blue-fronted Dex Imaging Cadillac. That car will carry the Mobile 1 colours as they go to Le Mans straight after this race. Third for Renger van der Zande, and the car that was on pole position some hour and 25 minutes ago, the Acura ARX06, the red, white and black number 93. Then it's Mathieu Jaminet for Porsche Penske Motorsport in the number 6963. Then the two BMWs started second and third, run fifth and sixth. Philip Eng in the 24 ahead of his teammate Marco Wittmann in sixth. That's your final VP Racing update.
Well, John, Ricky Taylor is on the hammer, fastest car on the track for the GTP class, at least in the battle for the top two, the last 2 laps. He's been close to a 10th quicker every lap against Felipe Nasser, who he's chasing in that Penske Porsche number 7. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Ricky gets close enough here in the waning moments. Could we see one of those vintage Ricky Taylor moves? He's going to set it up right here to the inside of turn number 3, and he's going to get contact with the left rear tire of Felipe Nasser and a drag race off the corner.
Now that will be looked at. He's gone down the inside of turn 4 and a block pass there. Here comes the red, white and black number 93. They're going to mug Nasser as well. The Porsche dominance at the start of the season may be under challenge here as Nasser has lost 3 places. He's down to 4th position. His teammate Mathieu Jaminet has gone through as well. Oh, I'm so pleased we can't listen in to Felipe Nasser's team radio. He will be fuming about that. Contact again at the front of the field for a major position. We'll see if it gets looked at. But there was no doubt that it put him offline and into the dirt. Up to race control to make that call. And this is why I'm very much happier sitting in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre than having to look at 27 replays of what just happened from 27 different angles and try and work out whether that deserves to be penalised or not. Typical Ricky Taylor, very forceful. He did it at that corner for the lead at this race last year. And at the front of the GTD profile, are we going to see something similar? Coming through turn 1 now, out of Franklin, up over the little rise on Rivard Street. Then the wide opening turn number 2, down that long front straight. And for the moment, Mike Rockenfeller, Rocky, what a fabulous career Mike Rockenfeller has had. Universally known as Rocky. He's driven absolutely everything. And great to see him still competitive in a works drive. I expect nothing more from Mike. No call from race control yet that they are having a look at that incident down at turn 3. It doesn't mean it's not happening, but we haven't seen it on the race control channel. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, in fact, as I say that, there you go. That's why I always like to give them time to have a look at it. It's going to be a tough one. Very bumpy down there. We'll see what they make of it. They'll have to make a decision pretty quickly. There was an overlap, but was there enough room down the inside? The blue car certainly was not alongside. Now, how did that affect what went on afterwards? I'd say probably not that much, except for the fact that Nasser had been pushed into the dirt on the previous corner and had dirty tyres. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars widths wide. Yeah, and that's absolutely ruined his exit from turn 3. Up to race control now and race direction to decide whether that was worth a penalty. The problem is that even if you give Ricky Taylor a penalty now, Chris, it's not going to give Felipe Nasser the lead back because he's dropped 2 more positions in the fumbling that went on, and it's no further action after a brief look at it by race control. Your thoughts, Chris?
If anything, John, you look at what Renger van der Zande did actually to Felipe Nasser maybe as a possible review, but I like the no call, especially like you mentioned. he was able to clear Ricky Taylor off of turn number 3. It's not like he was shoved in the tire barrier or spun out or anything of that nature. It was a late move, but race control deemed that to be a fair move. And what a pass for Ricky Taylor. Like you mentioned, 2 straight years in that very same corner, he was able to put the move for potentially the race win. Now, he still has Renger van der Zande to contend with, who continues to have that Acura in his sights. So Ricky's trying to run away a hide, but we'll have to see what happens with Renger van der Zande. Of course, both Penske Porsches now sitting 3rd and 4th, trying to get back on the whip as well to catch up to these two. It's not over by any means, but they're racing hard here at the end of this one at Detroit.
Just under 10 minutes to go at the front of the GTD Pro field, as it has been for some time. It is Ford, from Corvette, from Lamborghini, from Porsche, from Corvette, from Lexus, from Ford, and they're all pretty much line astern. A lot of fast lap times coming in now. Best laps of the race for a variety of cars and drivers, including Nicky Katzberg in the 5th place Corvette. 1:10.4. Aaron Telitz in the 6th place Lexus. New car coming for them next year. 1:10.3, 1:10.8 for Fred Vervish in the 65, 7th place Mustang. And down the inside for that number 4 of Nicky Katzberg and Lauren Heinrich. And there's a touch and a touch again. Oh, this is getting a bit too much. Very, very close quarters racing is good, but banging off each other 2 and 3 times on the racetrack. Now, is there damage to either of the cars? The number 4 has already taken some damage on the rear end. Roxy has been attracting some attention from the other cars today, that pink Porsche. But my goodness me, she had a clause out there to hold back the Corvette. That is getting right to the very edge of acceptable behaviour. I accept this is bumpy surface, but these cars are going exceptionally quick, and you do not want a breakage going down Franklin into the braking area, and you are putting stress on components there when you're banging side by side. I'll wait to see if that gets looked at as well. There was no change in position, but that's not what's at stake here. Meantime, at the front of the field, Renger van der Zande, he'll have been told by his team that when he was watching that pass for the lead, that a little bump and run into the into the 3rd corner has been deemed acceptable. So that is stored away, I am sure, in Renger van der's back of his mind, and there's a bit of history between these two drivers and between these two teams. They've swapped manufacturers this year, of course, as Meyer Shank is back with Acura, and after a year out, and Wayne Taylor Racing back with Cadillac. I suspect, Chris, that given the opportunity, Renger will send it down at turn 3 or turn 8.
Renger is no stranger, John, to big moments in late race situations. I mean, I can think of a handful off the top of my head. So when you have two of these kind of closers at the front of the field, it's who's going to outdo who. So you're right. It sets up a scenario much like what we saw Ricky Taylor do earlier to Felipe Nasser, to what possibly Renger van der Zande could do here to Ricky. But right now on the racetrack, I think Renger's just trying to size up his competition, seeing where Ricky is better, seeing where he can maybe capitalize on some of the mistakes of that Cadillac up ahead. But certainly going to be a fight to the finish here. 6.5 minutes to go here on the streets of Detroit.
I reckon that's about 5 laps from here. Now, we have got some warnings to the Corvette and to the number 77 Porsche. Warnings for contact and incident responsibility. I like that call. I like that. Nobody being penalised, but they have been given a warning to say that that conduct is not acceptable. And I think that's a great call by race control. Some people say that's a no call. No, that isn't a no call. And what that does, not just to those two teams and drivers, Chris, but to the rest of the field, says side by side like that, no. It's a bit of a finger wow. In soccer, it would be a bit of a yellow card. So now they know they've got to be on their best behaviour. I like that call.
I like it too as well, and I think, like you mentioned, sends a message, but also kind of shows where the line is for these guys, because also it's not going to be the only time we're going to see those kind of moves being made, especially down that Jefferson straightaway. So sets the benchmark here to say, okay, here's the line. You cannot cross it here with just over 5 minutes to go. So I've just been really enthralled with this battle for the lead in GTP, because Ranger is just absolutely all over the rear wing of Ricky Taylor. He has been the last couple of laps, and it's also brought in Matthew Jaminet just a little bit now, just about 2.5 seconds back. He was some 3+ seconds back. So the more traffic these two deal with is going to just bring in these GTP competitors.
And of course, Ricky Taylor sees the traffic and has to deal with it first, gets a little bit of an advantage there as he goes past one of the Ford Mustangs. Whoever's got the blue flag in hand at the moment around the circuit will have a very tired arm after the next 4 minutes. Checkered flag ends the race, but starts the conversation. Hashtag Michelin PRT for your questions, notes, points arising, brickbats or bouquets. You tell us and we will talk about it when we close down the international video feed. We'll continue on RS2 IMSA radio, also on Sirius XM 206 at the moment as well, as we are every race for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Thanks for being with us, however you've decided to consume the race, audio or audio and video. Our BDO No Strategy Awards, that comes down to nominations from Chris and me. At the front of the field, that's going to be a tough one. I'm going to throw in Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller for the second place car, because I'm not entirely certain how they actually did that. Down the inside for the lead at turn 1, and the pole sitting car makes a clean pass into turn 1. We were thinking turn 3 or turn 8, but Chris Wilner mentioned it right at the start of the programme that turn 1 was an opportunity, and immediately Renger van der Zande has put clear blue water between himself and the second place car, but then gets held up in traffic, and here comes the Dex Imaging chrome blue number 10 round the outside for Cadillac down into turn number 4. What a manoeuvre from Renger, but a gaggle, a phalanx of GTD Pro cars has somewhat stunted his manoeuvre. Now he's got to hang on for 3 more minutes. That's going to be 2, maybe 3 laps. Can he clear this traffic? Needs a decent run. Ricky Taylor dodges out to the left-hand side, shows the chrome blue nose of that Wayne Taylor car. It's been a terrible season for Wayne Taylor Racing so far. I have not seen Wayne so unhappy as the leader goes down the inside of the Pfaff Lamborghini. That car is in a battle as well, of course, for the top 3 in GTD Pro. So we've got the top 3 in GTD Pro and the top 3 in GTP working their way through. What a result this would be. Second would be great, but they have led. And has that been snatched away from them in a late show by Renger van der Zande? Now puts the Ford Mustang between himself, and here come the 2 Porsches in their internecine battle as well, and there's contact between Felipe Nasser and the Pfaff Lamborghini. My goodness me. We've had more contact in, an hour and 38 minutes than we've had, I think, pretty much the whole season up until now, Chris.
I think you're right. There are so many pieces of race cars scattered across this 1.7-mile circuit. It is unbelievable, as we have a problem here, and it looks like a Mustang, the Ford Multimatic, and that's in turn 3, as you mentioned, John, the 65 of Frederick Vervies.
That was the car that was damaged earlier on. Don't forget, they did put tyres on that car, it cost them ground. I don't think that car's coming out of there. 2 laps to go as they come across the line, this time 3.4 miles, and there's a gap between first and second. The pole sitting Acura and Honda, since we moved downtown, have been the mark to beat, whether it's sports cars or open wheelers. The 2 Porsches still disputing the 3rd step of the podium. I'm going to put my vote for Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller for the BDO No Strategy Award for GTD Pro. Your thoughts, Chris?
I think I'm going to have to go with Wayne Taylor Racing. No matter the result, the fact that this team has faced so much adversity, and today was a strategy call. Remember, Felipe Albuquerque, I should say, was left out on the racetrack the longest out of anybody and did the overcut, was able to only lose 2 spots. I think that was a race-saving call as the white flag is out. But tip of the cap to Wayne Taylor Racing. They're on a valiant run, sitting in a podium spot.
Yeah, number 7, Porsche, that played the strategy well as well. Still that BMW with the bit of Porsche in the front. And this is not all over for the miners either. On the last lap, Renger van der Zande keeps the Acura and Honda streak alive. It's a single held yellow down at turn 3. No overtaking manoeuvre there. Green flags as they head down onto Bate Street. It's a run to the line now. Porsche's stranglehold on the championship is broken. Acura's stranglehold in GTP is on and off for AO Racing, and Porsche, they're losing positions as well and have gone back, I think, to 6th or 7th in class, because that was the Lexus going through. But the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix Sports Car Classic goes to Acura. They defend their win from last year. The pole-sitting car, started by Nick Yellerly, finished by Renger van der Zande, but they had to work hard for that. It's a return to the podium and to form by Wayne Taylor Racing, and Cadillac are on the box ahead of the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport team, who will close on the championship leading team car. The number 7, Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy did everything right with their team. The strategy was perfect, but a bump and run and then losing positions with no time to make it up takes them out of a winning position down to 4th. Then Philip Eng and Marco Wittmann for the 2 BMWs. And at the front of the field in GTD Pro, very simple. Pole to flag victory. No, not simple at all. Perfectly executed by Seb Priaulx and Mike Rockenfeller, with a brilliant run to seconds of Antonio Garcia and Alexander Sims. Now, can we work out what happened right at the end there to Roxy? Looks like that was a tap from the number 4 Corvette. Yes, it was. And that'll be being looked at as well. That has... by the number 3 Corvette, possibly. Because they still finished ahead. Don't see why we saw all that smoke from that car. We'll leave the guys in race control to work that out. Well, great strategy and great pace from the Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac team. Gives them the BDO No Strategy Award in GTP, and it's Corvette that win for the number 3 car for Alexander Sims, the car that was started by Antonio Garcia in GTD Pro. The move of the race, clean as you like it, down into turn 1 with traffic just in front. What a move by Renger van der Zande. No bodywork changing hands there, no paint being traded. It's vinyl now, of course, but you know what I mean. That was a clean move and absolutely brilliant. And it was indeed the number 4 Corvette that turned around the 77 that then accelerated into the back of the number 4 car of Nicky Katzberg. That has been brewing all day. And those cars had already had a warning right at the end, pass under yellow, drive through for Marco Wittmann. Now, I don't think he served that, so he will get a time penalty on that. That must have been down at turn 3. So is that 6th place the result of that, or is that still to come? We'll find out. Chris Wilner has been alongside me here in the 4Performance Global Broadcast Centre. Seb Priaulx and Mike Rockenfeller celebrate the win on the streets of Detroit for the Blue Oval. And so many of these teams heading off to Le Mans. And don't forget the Ford Mustang Challenge race, 2 of them at Le Mans.
in the next couple of weeks. Chris, your thoughts on an action-packed and sometimes controversial but always entertaining 100 minutes here on the streets?
Absolutely, John. I think this is vintage Detroit racing on the streets as Meyer-Shank Racing celebrates in Victory Lane. You look at the running order, and it seems like, okay, both classes, the pole sitter wins the race. It was pretty straightforward, but it was anything but as it came down to strategy. It came down to some aggressive moves, and for the first time in 16 races, the pole sitter in GTP has gone on to win. So it breaks that streak as well. That is much deserved for Meyer-Shank Racing and, of course, Acura going back-to-back here at Detroit. So a fun race, an exciting race to call, John. It was a vintage race, as I said, at Detroit. And, man, I love street racing. It just really shows how difficult these races are, and it goes to some of the most daring drivers that can make those passes like what Ranger did. So job well done by all, and it was just a great race to watch.
So the incident between the Porsche 77 and Corvette number 4 is under review, and they already had a warning that may change the result, as with the drive-through from Marco Wittmann. In fact, that has now been processed, and that will promote the number 60 Acura up to 6th position. We'll keep an eye on the Alcamel timing screen in the next few moments. Stay tuned to RS2 or switch across to RS2 for Michelin post-race tech, which is next. Congratulations to Renger van der Zande and Nick Yellerly from pole to checkered flag, and that feat repeated by Seb Prior and Mike Rockenfeller for Ford Multimatic Motorsport and the Ford Mustang. And well done to Wayne Taylor Racing, the number 10 car, working its way to second place, wins our BDO No Strategy Award for GTP. And in GTD Pro, Alexander Sims also in second place for Corvette Racing. They'll get their trophies at the next round. For Chris Wilner, stepping in at short notice, I'm John Hindolf. Thanks to Aaron up in Concord and to Tim in London. We'll see you at the next one next weekend.
This program is a Radio Show Limited production. For more, check imsaradio.com and subscribe to IMSA Radio wherever you get your podcasts.